I think there is a very exciting time in the future, in the near future, for EVs. I think a lot of companies now are starting to really figure out how to make EVs exciting to drive, and I think BMW is honestly in the forefront of that. If you want today, if you're gonna go and buy a exciting EV and you're a driver enthusiast and you just love what BMW stands for in sports cars and love taking your car up on the twisties, there's just one EV that I've tested, that I've reviewed, that I would personally buy, and that is the i4 M50. I mean, that to me, that set it apart completely from every other EV I've driven. It was the best EV I've ever driven. And now BMW has dropped this brand new video about the M Electrified, about the new M3 EV. So I thought, I haven't checked out this video yet, so I'm just going to do it live here and react to what they're saying. And I also want to hear your opinion. Do you think this M3 EV is going to be a cool car, or is it just going to be like every other EV? So let's see what they have to say here.
We do have, now more than 20 years later, another beast on the roads. Now we will make that beast controllable so that the next step in high performance is on the horizon. When you start exploring the world of electromobility, as we did, the first thing is you put as much horsepower as you can with electric motors in a car. We found out that driving with more than 1,000 horsepower is a little bit fun if you accelerate from 0 to 100, but then if you want to actually drive precisely and want to have that agility from racing, then it's really far off. If you
This is what I've been saying for a long time. I mean, 0 to 60 times 1.5 seconds, probably. I'm sure some Tesla Model S Plaid 1.9 or something like that. You can pump EVs full of horsepower. It doesn't matter. At some point, we're gonna reach a point where you have 2,000 horsepower, but the car is undrivable and it's not even fun to drive yet. So I think BMW here, according to the I think he's the M boss who's talking here. I think they started to figure out, like, power is not everything. So let's see what they have to say.
You just have a lot of horsepower in the car. The thing starts getting complicated if you talk about controllability. So the second step was to build a car with the sole purpose of controlling the beast. How can you make a car drivable and also have, from a driver's standpoint, a very high degree of confidence in regards to the car, that you say, I know what it's doing, I know how to control it, and it feels like an M, because if you drive an M vehicle, it's very precise and it's very predictable. You never have the feeling the car is doing something you don't want it to do. It is obeying my orders, and it helps me to be a better driver. That was what we tried to do with our second generation of test cars, where we put a lot of focus on this controllability and drivability.
I think it's really cool that BMW is trying really hard to make this new, this is probably the new M3 that we're seeing right here in camo, and you can, or is it the M3? I'm not sure. It looks like it has a wide body kit on it. I'm going to show you the spy photos that we have from our front, side, and rear after this video and jump into Photoshop and talk about that. But I think it's really cool that BMW is trying to figure out how to make M cars EV special. And as I said, they've sort of done that already with the i4 M50. If you haven't driven that yet, if you have the opportunity to drive that, I would suggest you go and drive it and just feel how different that car feels compared to other EVs. Hey, they're going to Sweden. Look at that.
Von den sehr hohen Temperaturen und hohe Reibwertoberflächen, also Sommererprobungen wie Miramas oder ganz klassisch Death Valley, wo die allerhöchsten Temperaturen dann erreicht werden, bis hin zu ganz niedrigen Temperaturen und dann eben auch niedrig Reibwertoberflächen. Und um das zu machen, fahren wir in der Regel nach Schweden und erproben da die Fahrzeuge.
Up in Sweden, very, very cold, close to the Arctic Circle.
ist da für uns perfekt. Es verbindet tiefe Temperatur mit der Möglichkeit, auf zugefrorenen Seen bei niedrigstem Reibwert unsere Fahrzeuge abzustimmen und zu entwickeln und zu überprüfen.
That's what I thought. It is just an M3 shell, but they have the new EV tech for the new M2 under the skin here, I believe.
Wir müssen die Spreizung hinbekommen aus hoher Performance, aber auch perfekter Beherrschbarkeit bei niedrigsten Reibwertsverhältnissen. Wir werden ein sehr hohes Drehmoment zur Verfügung stellen und bereits kleine Drehmomentunterschiede können auf Fahrebenen mit niedriger Reibwert große Unterschiede bedeuten. Das heißt, die Applikation, die Regelgüte der E-Maschine ist für uns an der Stelle entscheidend. Zusätzlich müssen wir noch sicherstellen, dass die E-Maschinen perfekt ins Fahrzeug integriert sind. Das heißt, das Zusammenspiel zwischen Bremsung einer E-Maschine und Bremsung einer Reibbremse muss sich optimal gestalten.
A lot of technical stuff here. Another thing that EVs have a big problem with every single time when it get really cold here, every single EV just drains the battery really fast. I hope there will be a solution for that, because I would say probably it goes down to 60% efficiency or range when you're in extreme colds, and it just doesn't, it doesn't compare to an internal combustion engine, specifically if you need to have that specific range that is said to have in the dash, and then you get about 60% of that. It's not really reliable.
So etwas können wir uns am besten dort angucken, wo die Randbedingungen am schwierigsten sind. Und das sind einfach hier, wo wir Fahrbahnoberflächen haben mit sehr niedrigen Reibwertverhältnissen.
Und jetzt fahren wir eine Bedatung, die einem MDM-System quasi entsprechen wird, also quasi nach wie vor ein Regler aktiv, aber eben so, dass das Fahrzeug deutlich mehr Querdynamik zulässt.
Also wir machen das gleiche wie eben nochmal.
Wir machen jetzt das gleiche und werden jetzt sehen lassen.
Besser raus.
Genau.
Für uns ist die Reproduzierbarkeit absolut entscheidend. Das Fahrzeug muss zu jeder Zeit ein ehrliches Feedback geben. Ich muss eigentlich schon vor der Kurve wissen, wenn ich als Fahrer mich so verhalte, verhält sich das Fahrzeug anschließend so. Jeder, der in dieses Auto einsteigt und die Möglichkeit hat, dieses Auto zu fahren, steigt mit einem Grinsen aus. Und gerade hier in Eigenburg kann man es erleben, wenn man die volle Reibwertausnutzung einfach durch perfekte Regelungen, durch herausragende E-Maschinen entsprechend darstellen kann, was da eigentlich alles geht. Wir alle dafür kämpfen, dass sowas hier möglich wird, und es macht schon Spaß zu sehen, wenn die neben mir auf dem Beifahrersitz sitzen und selber das Grinsen nicht aus dem Gesicht kriegen, wenn sie einem zeigen, was sie wieder geschafft haben.
And, this is the same thing when I was driving the i4 M50. I had a smile on my face the entire time. It was such a fun car to drive, and it also has the right noises. Even though I know I've said like having everything simulated is just not the way to go with EVs, but I think BMW just with the i4 M50, I think it doesn't feel like the noise is artificial, even though it is, obviously, but it feels like it's part of the car itself. Having it in sport mode, what it does, first of all, it enhances the sound that you get from this car. And it makes it feel like, if you have it in comfort, it feels like the car is just chilling on the couch, watching some TV, and then when you press it into sport, it just tenses up and it's always ready to go. You can feel the entire car just tense up, and I love that about the sport settings here. It's a proper sport mode.
Der übliche Weg, der sich in der Automobilentwicklung über Jahrzehnte so etabliert hat, ist, dass es eben für jede Disziplin müssen dann auf einem relativ langsamen.
Let's have a look at the proportions here, because looking at the new 3 Series in general, we know that it's going to be Neue Klasse inspired, and honestly, I've made videos on that before. I'm not against that one bit. I do think the Neue Klasse actually looks really good. It has all the key components in a BMW, meaning that we do have the proportion, and the proportions of this, we can see the proportions right here, just how good it looks. It looks like a properly stanced BMW, and as I said, the key components, we have the dual light elements in the front end. We have the kidneys, dual kidneys here as well, and we have the Hofmeister kink, of course, being intact. And you can see that the greenhouse is properly boxed off, and I like to see BMW go back to a more boxy shape like this. It just looks like the old, E39 and the E46 BMWs, and it just feels right for BMW. I do like the wheels here as well, even though they're blacked out. But I don't think these are probably not the wheels that are going to go on the production model. And then we have this lower section, the side skirt, the lower or rocker panel down here, that looks like it has sort of a wide body kit. It sticks out here, and then it goes into these super wide fenders. So the plantedness of this car looks fantastic, and we can see the proportions a little bit more here, of course, in side view. And I also like the graphics that they put on here, because having these big circular pieces of graphics around the wheel arches just makes it look, I think that plays a little bit with how planted this car looks. Again, the rocker panel, we do have the proportions, and look at the proportions here in the wheelbase. We don't have the rear axle sticking out all the way to this point right here, which it usually does on EVs, and this makes it look like, I know it's going to be both an EV and internal combustion engine version of this, so I think they just played with the proportions to not make it look like an EV. And we've learned now, Mercedes learned the hard way, that you don't need to have a design that looks like a bubble in order for the EV to have a great range. We have a lot of boxy EVs today that have fantastic ranges. Looking at the rear end, we can't really see the graphics in the rear, but I would assume that we're going to have something like this. Very static looking graphics for the rear end, similar to what we had on the Neue Klasse concept. And you can see here we have a properly defined bumper. That's something that we can make out. And if we have the internal combustion engine version, it's going to be, of course, 100%. This being an M3, we need to have the quad tailpipes right there in the rear end. So I just wanted to quickly just go over this design. And another thing here is you can see the door handles they sit flush with the bodywork when the car is locked, I do believe. You can see it here when it's rolling. They're still out, but it looks like they sit flush otherwise with the bodywork. So I just wanted to quickly go over this new M3 video, because they dropped it a couple of hours ago and I hadn't watched this. I thought, let's watch it together and also talk a little bit about these proportions that we have for the new M3. It's going to look great both as an internal combustion engine and an EV, and I honestly cannot wait to. I specifically want to see the internal combustion engine version with the quad tailpipes, beefy stance, massive rear wheels, proper M car. I really look forward to see how that is going to look.